drills. That's anywhere, that's anytime, you can still get pills. I'm aiming for wigs, so I'm aiming to kill. Set up in the men's, don't give a fuck, you can still get drilled. All I wanna do is crush that porn. My niggas them told me make peace, we go to war. I said fuck that, I wanna drill 9, then drill some more. Smoke my man in the face, yeah that point got scored. Couldn't give a toss about law, niggas no CB. More time if it was done by the 7, it was done by me. I ride for my G's, put my heart on the streets. So if you see me, that's not my teeth. So chat tough and I'm spinning round. Ask the ops how that spin the sounds. When I spin the banks, try and know that's a nigga down. And where I'm from, we always know to keep things around. All the risks that the team be taking. That's why my nigga Nero's money.
Hi all, it's Loz D, Punch Out TV. How are you all doing on this Thursday evening? Back at you with another video. There's a fight taking place this weekend on Sky Sports / The Zone. It's Britain's Josh Warrington versus Mexico's Mauricio Lara. It's the former IBF world champion Josh Warrington who vacated the belt a couple of weeks ago. Is 30-0 with 7 KOs. He's age 30. He's orthodox, and he stands at 5'7", which is 170 centimeters. His last fight was back in October of 2019, so he's been inactive for a while. Obviously, a lot of that will be due to the COVID. He's fighting this Mauricio Lara. I can't tell you much about him because to be honest, I've never heard of the guy and I've never seen him fight. But what I found a little bit of him is he's age 22, from Mexico. His record is 21 wins, 2 losses. He's been knocked out in one of them, and he's got 14 KOs. I looked through his record on BoxRec, and it seems that he's fought a lot of South American fighters, to which my knowledge is I don't know many of them on his record at all. But yeah, so Josh is back in action. Like I say, it's this Saturday on The Zone / Sky Sports. He's fighting this Lara guy. I should imagine this is a warm-up fight. I like Josh Warrington. He's a good fighter. He's a tough kid from a tough town. He's beaten some good fighters. Just off the top of my head, he's beaten Kid Galahad, who I think is now mandatory for his old belt. He beat Lee Selby, who's the former world champion. He took the belt off him. He beat Carl Frampton, who's a 2-time world champion at 2 different weights, and he beat a former world champion, Kiko Martinez. Now, I do believe that Kid Galahad was mandatory for the IBF belt. Why Josh vacated this belt, I don't know, because I would have liked to have seen that fight again, because that was a great fight between them both. So I'm a bit cheesed off that he vacated the belt, but it is what it is. He's vacated the belt. I want to see him. The other fight that I want to see him in is against Gary Russell Jr., who's the WBC featherweight champion. I do believe he's the longest reigning champion in boxing. Them two have got a little bit of beef, what's been going on for over the last couple of years. Gary Russell Jr. calling him out. Josh Warrington's called Gary out. And they've been going back and two over social media, but somehow this fight's never happened. The last I know, to my knowledge, was that Team Warrington offered Gary Russell Jr., I think it was £1 million a few weeks back or a few months back, and Gary turned it down because he says it was beneath him, which, and he's got a point, because at the end of the day, Gary Russell Jr. is the world champion. He's got the WBC belt, and he's only got one loss on his record as well, which a lot of people can question that over the Lomachenko fight. And he's a very, very talented fighter as well, an excellent fighter, Gary Russell Jr. This fight for me is the fight I want to see. But Josh has been on about he wants to move over to America and train over there and start fighting the American fighters. Obviously, the COVID has played a big part in this not happening. But for me, I would have liked to have seen Josh keep the IBF belt, fight Kid Galahad again. He already beat him the first time in a very good fight. In fact, it was a fantastic fight. And then fight Gary Russell Jr. I looked at the rankings before, in the featherweight rankings, and they've got Josh Warrington ranked number 1, Gary Russell Jr. number 2, Can Xu is number 3, and Kid Galahad is number 4. So it'd make sense for number 1 and number 2 to fight each other. But like I say, it's a warm-up fight for him, because he's been out of action since October 2019. So, like I say, if he wins this fight, I can't really tell you anything about this Mauricio Lara, because like I say, I've never seen him fight, and I don't know if he's orthodox or southpaw or anything. I looked on BoxRec and it doesn't say. It's just got his age and where he's from. But like I say, hopefully he wins this fight, and then somewhere down the line this year they can make that mouth-watering fight with Josh Warrington versus Gary Russell Jr. That's what I want to see. But yeah, I hope you have a great evening. And like I say, the fight's on this Saturday. If you catch it, hope you enjoy it. Peace out, and I'll catch you on the next one.